Holly and today I'm going to be talking you through my labour and induction story. So I went in at 1 PM on Saturday the 18th of March and a midwife came in, introduced herself and she explained what would be happening. Spirits actually kind of dampened a little bit at that point because she said with your first baby, which in my case it was, they don't always work. They insert a pessary every 6 hours and they can only do 4. And she said, and even for people who are on their second or third baby, it can take at least the second or third pessary for it to start anything from working. And so she also said if it does work by any chance and your waters don't break on their own, then you have to be put on a waiting list for a bed in the labour ward, which could take up to about 9 days. So I was a little bit bummed out at that point, but we agreed to go ahead with it anyway. So she inserted the pessary at 1 PM. No, she inserted it at 3:40 PM. We went in at 1 PM. So yeah, we were sat waiting around for something to happen, but you have to wait 6 hours before you can get another one. So we was all just kind of entertaining ourselves. It was me, my husband and my mother. I have it here as 7:35 when I felt my first contraction. My contractions straight away as soon as my first one hit, they were every 1 to 2 minutes, and they were averaging from about 26 seconds to 40, and they were kind of like a bad stomach ache is the best way to describe it. Most people say they're like strong period cramps. I personally never had much of a problem with period cramps, so I can't compare it to that, but if that's how some people say it, then it must be true. Come about 9:40, I felt my waters break. It was kind of like a pop gush and because I had GBS, which is group B strep something, so I had to have antibiotics put straight into my hand. I was trying to say arm and hand at the same time, into my hand through a cannula, so which meant they couldn't really delay any time for me to get into labour ward. I had to be rushed straight in. But I was in there by about 10:10 and met my new midwife who was going to be with me 24/7 for that entire time. By about 10:30, that's when they actually put the cannula in, and it actually stung quite considerably. It's a fat needle and it has about 2 or 3 tubes coming off of it that can attach different things to. So I took blood from one of them, antibiotics in through the other. At this point she said, oh, you're actually about 2 centimetres dilated now. So I said, so we'll do another examination at 12:30. 12:30 came along and they said, oh, you're now 3 centimetres dilated. And at this point my contractions were getting a lot stronger. It wasn't against pain relief, it's just I don't do well with needles, so I kind of refused any epidural or pain relief that way. But the consultant, he said, well, you can have gas and air, and I've read up on it and I knew that if I breathed in incorrectly, if I breathed it too fast, it could make you violently sick. I don't like being sick either, so I was a bit off about it, but it persuaded me. Looking back on it now, I honestly don't think it really helped me that much. It didn't make much of a difference, but I guess it took my mind off of it and it made me slowly breathe, which helped in a way. At about 1 PM, so half an hour later, the heartbeat on the monitor of my baby kept dipping in rate, especially when I had a contraction, and it made them all a little bit worried, so they started prepping for if I had to be rushed into a theatre for a C-section. In the end I ended up not needing to go in because they attached, instead of the strips around your belly, they attached like a clip in and they clipped it onto his head, and they said it wouldn't hurt him. It just kind of clips into the skin and it's that small, they can't really feel it. So at this point I was still only 3 centimetres dilated, and then at 2 PM I actually had a really bad nosebleed. It was just gushing and I was sick all at the same time, so I just had this bowl over my face and it was all coming out, and that was vile. But I personally think that was probably from the gas and air because I was breathing it a little too quickly, because when a contraction happened you can't really help it, you just kind of like, so yeah, I think that was probably my fault for not using it correctly. And then contractions were getting even more intense at this point. And then at 2:30 it was getting really bad to the point I actually screamed. I'm not much of a screamer, never really have been, but then in this situation I was, which I was so embarrassed about. So the nurses and consultants came in and basically said you don't have to put yourself through this. You can have pain relief if you want to, and I kept saying no, I don't want needles, don't want. And so they said, well, it's making you being stressed, is making the baby stressed, and it's bad for both of you. So you're kind of going to need to take something just to calm you both down. So they requested morphine, and I was dire at that point, thinking yes, I'm going to get some relief, so I just went for it. And this one they put further down, about here in my wrist. He gave me a green button, and it flashes green, and when you feel like you need the morphine, you press it and then the green light goes off, and it won't come on again for a few minutes, just to stop you from any chance of overdose or anything, because it's dangerous if you overdose. It made a lot of difference because I was able to get some sleep rather than being shattered, but I would wake up again with these contractions and I'd be straight off again. About 6:20, even with the morphine, I could feel these contractions through the morphine. My midwife said, right, well, I'll check you then. And she checked me, she said, you're 10 centimetres dilated. She said, so if you have the urge to push, go ahead and just push whenever you feel a contraction. And honestly, to describe it, kind of feels like a push down, like as if you're having a massive poo, because it feels like a lot of weight down on your bottom and you just kind of push out, but you kind of have to be careful because if you use the wrong muscles, you could poo yourself. But luckily for me, I didn't. That was one of my biggest fears, that I would poo myself. And I was pushing for a little over an hour, for about an hour and 10 minutes. And he was born at 7:31 on the Sunday, so the next day. My husband held him first because I wanted him to be the one to pass my baby to me. It just felt a lot more personal. Jake cut the umbilical cord and then was given him, they cleaned him, and then the midwives did all their little jobs for me where they have to put an injection in your thigh to get the placenta out. They have to check your downstairs to see if you have torn or anything. So they did all this, and I think I was in for another 12 hours. Yeah, just because they said you have to be in for another 12 hours so they can keep monitoring his sugar levels, his oxygen levels, his heat, make sure it's regulating all correctly, before I could go home. I actually had to have some stitches. She called it a first degree tear, but she said it's barely a first degree just because it was more grazing and swelling than it was actual tearing. So she said you need about 2 or 3 stitches. I had a student midwife do it, and she said she's going to put a local anaesthetic in to numb the area before she stitched. But there was a few times when she'd catch an area of skin that wasn't numb. So I would feel like, oh, that was horrible. So during having stitches, I actually had to have gas and air just for having stitches, even though it's supposed to be numb. And also my placenta wouldn't detach itself, so I had a few issues with that. They said if it doesn't come out on its own, then you're going to need to go into theatre and have a C-section to have it removed. She basically said that they're testing this new drug at the minute. It's like a spray that goes on underneath your tongue, and it's supposed to help detach the placenta, but you'll either get the real thing or a placebo effect drug, just because it's still in testing, and we could try it if you'd like. So I kind of said yes, just because I did not want to go into theatre, so if anything helped I would try it. So she came in about 15 minutes later and tried it, and she said we've got to leave it 15 minutes to see if it works, and if it doesn't then you will be going into theatre. It had detached itself, but it was sat at the bottom and wouldn't come out. So she tried pushing my stomach, like she told me to push as if it was another push for getting the baby out, while she pushed my stomach and had a hand around the umbilical cord and tried pulling. She said, right, I'm going to give this my absolute all to get this placenta out, and if it doesn't work then I'm sorry, we'll have to go into theatre. And it did come out, so luckily I didn't have to go into theatre. So this placenta came out. I don't know what it looked like, I did not look, but my husband did look, and he said it kind of looked it's gross description, but he said it looks like a flattened testicle that's very, very bloody. So if you can picture that, there you go, you have it. My mum did stay with me the entire way throughout it, and so did my husband. They were both amazing support. It wasn't what I'd call a beautiful experience, but it was good to look back on. I hope that helps all of you expecting mums who are soon to be delivered, and I hope everything goes really well for you. So all the best, and I'll see you soon.